Have you ever played Sonic Adventure 2? I happen to have quite a few hours in this game. SA2's story is infinitely replayable to me, and for whatever reason, I find myself coming back to this game time and time again. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was probably one of the first Sonic the Hedgehog games I played on the GameCube and in general. And for as much as I love it, I don't think I'd have nearly as much time in that game if it wasn't for the Chao Garden. I have spent easily 500 hours in the Chao Garden, specifically in Sonic Adventure 2 on GameCube. The Chao Garden was a strangely robust pet raising simulator that was included in both Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. SA2's added a lot more features like Hero Chao and Dark Chao, as well as the Chao Kindergarten where you could raise them and check stats. SA2's Chao Garden is probably the most robust version of the mechanic. I feel like if you're a fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog games, you probably are familiar with the Chao Garden to some degree, but you may not have actually put that much time into it. The first Sonic Adventure Chao Garden was a pretty simple affair. While a lot of these mechanics were available in the first Sonic Adventure, SA2's is a lot more easy to understand and accessible. In the early 2000s, I was exploring a lot of my favorite games online, and I came across a website called Chao Island. If you're familiar with the Chao system at all, it's thanks to this website. Chao Island inspired me to get really into this system and understand the mechanics behind it. I'd heard about all these special ways to raise Chao through these forums and websites. I wanted to do it for myself. So back when I was a lot younger, I decided to put a lot of time into the Chao Garden. I have no way of knowing exactly how much time I've actually put in the game. Because of the way that the Chao save data was separated from the Sonic Adventure 2 story data, you'd be able to keep all your rings by just resetting your save data every once in a while through a different memory card. I would constantly reset my main game data in order to keep my ring count up, so I didn't have to grind for them for the Chao Garden. Meaning that a lot of the times I would spend a dozen hours in the Chao Garden and then reset my save data, and that still put me at over 350. Based on the time that it takes to raise Chao, I have anywhere between 500 to 1,000 hours in Sonic Adventure 2 on GameCube alone. I haven't returned to this save data at earliest since the early 2010s, and so I thought it would be cool to share with you guys my 500-hour Chao Garden and talk about the systems that kept me there for so long. So before I start the Chao Garden tour, I want to preface this by saying I did not use any cheats here. This is purely good old wasting time. I probably spent a few summers when I was in middle school just grinding rings and emblems in order to get all these things. So with that out of the way, let's begin our first garden tour. So in the neutral Chao Garden, I have all of my gem Chao. So this includes the silver and gold Chaos from Sonic Adventure DX and all of the jewel Chaos from Sonic Advance. Sonic Advance on GBA had its own tiny Chao Garden, and in that Chao Garden, you could raise money through the game, sort of like in Sonic Adventure 2, and use that money toward new Chao. Every once in a while, those new Chao would be a couple thousand rings, and you would get a jewel. These include amethyst, emerald, ruby, and so on. I don't have every single jewel Chao here, but it seems like I have a good lot of them. Each of these, you gotta remember though, would take thousands of rings. And think about how many times you'd have to play a level in Sonic Advance 2 in order to get, say, 5,000 rings. Next up is the Dark Garden. So in my Dark Garden, I have all of my Chaos Chao. Chaos Chao are incredibly funny to me. So they are immortalized Chao that can no longer die. Think about how a Tamagotchi can pass away. Chao can pass away too. In order to get a Chaos Chao, you have to do a whole laundry list of tasks in order to get this Chao to evolve into a Chaos Chao. A Chaos Chao has to have gone through a full lifespan at least twice, and it needs to be over 50 happiness. You also need to give a Chao at least one of every animal in its current lifespan. So that means going through the game and collecting every single type of animal and giving it to the Chao. It also can't be any type-based Chao, so it can't be a flying type or a power type. It has to evolve into a normal type. So you have to do all of these things before it reincarnates, and then you'll get this Chaos Chao. I think they're pretty awesome. I mean, the neutral one is based on Chaos himself, and the other two are like a true angel and demon. I've got a gold one here, which is from Sonic Adventure DX. His name's Synchro, probably based on Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've also got a few other ones like Soul and Spare. So when it comes to the Chaos Chao, I didn't really bother raising 5 identical Chao all at the same time. I believe that at the time I cloned 4 of these guys in order to just have one of every type of Chao, and then another one of them ended up getting cloned another time. Cloning Chao is a relatively easy process. Thankfully, they're not like old Pokemon games where they're very protective of cloning. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you can very easily clone your Chao. All you really need to clone Chao are a Game Boy Advance, a Game Boy Advance to GameCube cable, and a spare memory card. You simply put the Chao that you want to clone into the Game Boy and then load a different save data. When you load that other save data, you can drop off the Game Boy Chao, and your original Chao will just reappear as it doesn't want you to accidentally delete your save. Just in order for you to not lose it in case your Game Boy battery save runs out.
There will be problems peculiar to children, those of feeding, disease, and emotional stress. And of course, there will be extra difficulties in caring for the infant and the newborn.
It's worth mentioning that the average lifespan of a Chao, I think, is around 30 hours. Idling became a big part of running the game. I'd often just leave my GameCube running for hours at a time just to get the Chao to reincarnate or evolve. So in my Hero Garden, I kept a lot of my favorite Chao. There are 3 base types of Chao. There's colored ones, shiny ones, and jewels. Shiny is sort of an added quality to any other type of Chao. So you can have a shiny red or just red. When it comes to the regular type of Chao, they're considered two-tone. You can also have two-tone colored Chao or two-tone shiny Chao. Muddy here is, I believe, a two-tone brown Chao. I distinctly remember desperately trying to create some two-tone Chaos because I thought they looked cooler, and I just couldn't get anything else. At some point I just ended up with Muddy, and that was it. This one here is Echo. And Echo is a transparent Chao. Transparent is not a type of egg that you can just buy. In order to get a transparent Chao, you have to breed a shiny Chao with a jewel Chao. Its parents have to be both shiny and jewel, which can pass down from breeding. I don't remember who's Echo's parents, but it's one of these jewel Chao and it's one of these shiny Chao. It does seem like a bit of a graphic error because a lot of things don't appear through Echo. Since it really is kind of random what sorts of genetics carry on to the next Chao, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. Breeding Chaos for a specific color can get you really tied up. You can help this by giving them heart fruits, but emblems from the main game do affect the quality of items that you get in the in-game store. At some point, it stops mattering because you have basically everything that you could want. As far as I know, I'm only missing maybe 1 or 2 things from the store. I actually did play the game a little bit extra and unlocked the Amy theme, which is kind of funny because I swore I already had it. Not only does your Chao have to be a specific age, but it also has to be in the mating season at all. You have to set them up in a way that they sit right beside each other in order to breed. I've probably done this with the 2 heart fruits over and over in order to get the specific type of Chao. So I would sit there and try to get all of these shiny Chao to breed with these jewel Chao, and inevitably it led to me getting Echo. And here's their new kid. What a winning smile. I'm gonna call him Bun. The Chao Garden is also full of all sorts of bugs. In every garden in Sonic Adventure 2, there's some sort of clipping problem or mistake that affects your Chao in maybe a negative way. In the Hero Garden, you can get Chao stuck on this pillar, and they can never move, and they'll end up getting hungry. So if you end up standing here to idle, your Chao will get way too hungry and then maybe even die. In the Neutral Garden, you can clip through the wall here in order to get out into the skybox. If you go far enough, all your Chao will end up swimming under the floor. It was always a fun trick to do if people didn't really know that it was a thing. My frame rate might have not captured this properly, but Sonic and Shadow jitter like crazy in this skybox. The Dark Garden also has its own little tricks. You can stand in this cage here. You can also put your Chao into this hole by this fence. I guess it's kind of fitting that you can bury your Chao in the Dark Garden with all these graves lying around. Maybe it was a joke from the developers, but being able to tuck a Chao into the grave here is kind of a weird bug. So every Chao has 5 types of stats, and they can all be raised by leveling into that stat and then evolving into that type of Chao. I did mention it a little bit earlier, but every Chao can be a swim, power, run, neutral, or fly type. And as well as those 5 types, they can be one of 3 affinities, neutral, hero, or dark. And every time it would reincarnate, it would keep those base stats. So of course, at the time, I raised a few Chao to full S. This isn't technically the absolute highest that you can get the stat pools to, but getting every Chao to S meant that you could basically dominate every single race. I think that if I knew exactly what I was doing and I was trying to raise things perfectly, I probably would have a lot more to show for it. The thing is that the Chao Garden takes easily 30 hours for one lifetime. And if you had a Chao that was full of maybe B stats, it would take you hundreds of hours in order to raise that B stat Chao to a full S. I have my full S Chao here, and his name is Devil. Devil must have been used to create the rest of those Chaos Chao because they're all shiny neutral, and he is too. But this copy of Devil is probably the original because his stats are full S rank. Devil must have just gotten this stat line recently because he's not even fully evolved. All of the levels in one lifetime can go up to 99, and Devil's still pretty low. I didn't want to mess with this point in time for my Chao Garden, so I decided to grab Devil and Echo and copy them to another save data. We'll call this new version of Devil Demi-Devil. So Demi-Devil is going to be raised to full 99 stats, just in order to see what that really looks like. In order to do this, you want to go to a stage and get as many animals of a specific type that you can. Animals will remove certain stats and make it harder to level everything up all at once, so you might as well just focus on one at a time. There's another trick to do here. If you stand just a little bit farther away from your Chao and you drop the animal directly in front of them, you can pick it up right before it completes the animation and keep the stats. Doing this for about an hour means that you can get nearly any stat to full 99. The only problem is that there's no animals, as far as I remember, that can level stamina up. In order to get stamina up, you have to feed them loads and loads of fruit and nuts, which I don't know if I have the time for here. Anyway, Demi-Devil is now full 99, and we can take him out to the course. With max stats at S rank, Demi-Devil is flying past the competition. There's dozens of Chao races to go through in order to get every emblem, but his stats are more than enough to get through everything. I really like the way that Chao have multiple tiers of animation when it comes to swimming and running. At this point, Demi-Devil is basically Naruto running at a full sprint, but it really just takes so much time to go through all of these at once. I personally wouldn't recommend doing the Chao races all at once. All of the races also give your Chao and your gardens special features, like a TV, a radio, or a pogo. I think it's a really cool reward, but I do remember being a little disappointed to find that all the items aren't really shared between Chao. If one Chao is your star player and he unlocks everything for you, he's the only one who's going to have a coloring book or a pogo or whatever other toy, minus a few things. I have a lot of time that's probably just from sitting in the garden and waiting for Chao to evolve. But I also have a load of time just playing the levels over and over again in order to unlock stuff for the Chao Garden. These days, if I'm playing Sonic Adventure 2, I'm just here for the gameplay and I don't really mess around with the Chao Garden. But at the time, I would be here grinding these items and getting to know every level front to back in order to know what the best place to get certain animals was. If I wanted a bone dog, which would get rid of the animal cosmetics, I'd go to Pumpkin Hill, dig for this 1-up, and then get the dog and reset. City Escape realistically has hundreds of replays because it was, to me, the best way to just farm rings. It's an easy level, it's fun enough to play, and you would consistently end up with 200 to 300 rings no matter how well you did.
That was cool!
I think a part of the appeal of the Chao Garden was how the systems would almost seem random. The Chaos would do so many different actions, and they would learn actions from animals or from the school. By learning how to do all these things, they would really feel alive as they grew. There's really just a lot of work and charm that went into this system. And I don't think I can go without mentioning the incredibly depressing release method. If you want to say delete a Chao, it puts you up to this screen with a Chao that's basically begging you to keep it with the saddest song in any Sonic game. Maybe any game ever. I think Sega unknowingly made hundreds of children cry because of this menu. I basically would never delete Chao if I could help it. I just feel like there's so much to talk about when it comes to the Chao Garden. The level of detail is kind of shocking for a game that really didn't need it to begin with. But it's hard to say that I would have nearly as much love and respect for Sonic Adventure 2 if I hadn't been spending all this time in the Chao Garden. In the long run, it's a pretty smart system that gives players reasons to replay the same dozen or so levels over and over. I hope that I made it clear how weirdly in-depth this system is. While I think that there's definitely a possibility that they could do something similar to it, I think that the amount of things that a Chao can do is simply just not really in the budget for a modern AAA Sonic game. In my opinion, the best solution would be some sort of mobile attachment that goes alongside a main series game, but it really doesn't feel like they would ever bother doing this unless it became a huge scale project. And frankly, it sucks because I think the Chao system is really addictive, and it's just such a Sega thing to do, to put this whole thing together for seemingly no reason. I love the Chao Garden, and I think that I've spent way more time than I ever should have, but I don't really regret it. These things were fun to go back to and take a look at, and I hope that maybe you had some fun learning about how insanely overly complex these things are. And I want you to let me know, if you've played Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, did you raise Chao, did you get all those emblems, or did you find it too time consuming? A lot of the things that you need to know to make your time a little bit more worthwhile are kind of like exploits, so I think that the time investment for a casual player maybe wouldn't make that much sense. Either way, I want to thank you for watching the video. If you did like the video, subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about the Chao Garden. Sonic Adventure 2 is probably one of my favorite games ever, so it was fun to talk about, even in this way. I need to stop saying everything's my favorite game. But I guess I only talk about the things that I like. Well, anyway, take care, guys.